You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Chip Gilchrist, voice of the Kingston Frontenacs. You're listening to OHL Overtime, an in-depth interview show highlighting the players, coaches, and broadcasters from around the Ontario Hockey League who make the league so great, as well as in-person coverage of events such as the OHL Playoffs, OHL Championship Series, OHL Combine, and more, exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Here's your program host, Brendan Caputo.
Welcome back to our OHL Overtime OHL Championship preview episode here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. I'm pleased to be joined now by Associate General Manager for the London Knights. That would be Rob Simpson. Rob, thanks so much for joining us today. Congratulations on being able to get to this point. And when I talked to you last season after the championship victory for the Knights last season against Oshawa, you talked about this group being so special, and now getting to your third straight to OHL Championship. I'm sure you and the staff are couldn't be much happier with how things have gone so far.
Yeah, it's been a great season so far for our team, and pretty special for some of these players like Sam Dickinson and Easton Cowan, Denver Barkey, Oliver Bonk, and I think Landon Sim are the guys that have been for all three runs all the way along, which is pretty spectacular. It's tough to make it to three finals in a row, and sometimes you get tired along the way, or it takes a lot of push for these guys that have been in all three. So I think it shows the character of those guys in our team overall that we're able to get back and have another chance to win.
And you talked about the development and that core that you guys have built. It's sort of the last dance for a lot of those guys that you mentioned that have grown up through the London Knights system. 13 NHL draft picks now on the team, and could be a few more with Medvedev and Brustavich in the upcoming NHL draft. So pretty unheard of in the league. And I think there's this expectation and stigma around the league that London just always is going to compete, but I don't think it's as easy as everybody thinks it is, that the London Knights are going to be, competing every single year. For you and the staff, what has been sort of, I guess, the secret sauce as far as being able to get to this point and being competitive year in and year out, not really having many years through a cycle in junior hockey where you guys aren't competitive?
I think probably one of the biggest things that helps us is our stability in our core kind of management and coaching group. We've been together between our coaches and Mark and I, for 14, 15 plus years now, if you take everybody, Dylan and Rick and Dale and myself and Mark. So, we've won Memorial Cups together. We've won championships together. And I think we're at that point where we understand what each of us does really well, what we don't do really well, and, where we slot in to help the whole process work. I would say that would be one of the factors of the consistency. But after that, it really comes down to the players. We've been lucky enough to draft quality players with quality character that want to win and want to perform every night over those years. And, we can be together as long as we want, but if those guys don't want to work with us and they don't want to compete and they don't want to come to practice every day to prepare and listen and try to get better, then it's not going to go very far. So we've been lucky and fortunate with the players that come here to they buy into the system and development that we want for them.
12-0 so far in the playoffs, that's unheard of. And again, you don't expect to go into a playoffs and go all the way, not losing a game. But, what is it about, especially playing in front of the home crowd there at now Canada Life Place in front of 9,000, can be intimidating for other teams coming in there as well. What can you say about, Knights Kingdom as a whole, and the support you guys get year in and year out, that makes this all possible as well?
Yeah, I know it's cliche, but it really is like our advantage, or our our seventh attacker on the ice, our sixth attacker, I should say. It it really pushes our player every single night to excel, because the fans want to see quality hockey. They expect us to win, and I think for our players, it's easy to come in and be pumped up or excited to play when you have 9,000 fans. And when you're doing well like we have in the playoffs this year and last year, there's a buzz around the city. The everybody's saying good luck or congrats, and everybody knows what's going on. So that kind of focus on the players. If you're a top end player, you want to entertain, and you want to be in front of people, and you want to show how good you are. And I think that helps when you have 9,000 fans cheering you on and the city rallying behind you. So we're really lucky, and we're fortunate, with the city of London and how much they support us. And I know the players and staff and everybody here really feel that.
And then going a little bit on, you talked about the great core that you've built, but you did make a few acquisitions and signees throughout the season that have really, helped shape your team into what it is today, with yourself and general manager Mark Hunter. Firstly, I don't think you could expect anything more from Austin Elliott. You pick him up from Barrie for a fifth-round pick after he was claimed off of waivers from the Kamloops Blazers in the Western Hockey League. He still only has one loss on the season, Rob. Pretty incredible to think about, and you guys have done that last few years with Michael Simpson last year, picking him up as an overage goaltender, and now with Austin Elliott, with Medvedev behind him as well, who's going to be a very solid goalie as well. But what can you tell us about what you guys have thought of Austin Elliott coming to London?
Yeah, we've been, extremely thrilled with his performance, and I would say his demeanor overall. He seems to have a calming influence in the net, and our players feel that he doesn't get too rattled. He doesn't get too high or low, whether he gives up a goal or makes 20 saves in a row. He just is consistent there, and if you've been a part of a team, you understand how important that is. It can just calm your team down. If things start getting rattled, but your goalie doesn't seem like it's chaos or out of control, it really does help a lot. And I think Austin, the one thing we thought with bringing in Austin is last year things didn't go the way he wanted them to there. Yeah, he was on a very good team, and then a younger goalie ended up taking his position when he struggled a bit. And we dug a lot into his character as a person, and felt that if he came in, he was going to seize the opportunity because he'd been through some ups and downs in the past, and he was going to learn from them. And I think that's what he's done. And I think from day one being here, that was his mindset. Like, Lexi's here, but I'm going to make sure I keep my net. And, he's been in this situation. He's played in front of 12,000 fans. So it was kind of the perfect fit as far as what we were looking for. And I think, a situation that he could come in and thrive in.
London Knights Associate General Manager Rob Simpson's with us. A few other acquisitions you made. You obviously gave up a fair amount of draft capital for Cam Allen, coming over from the Guelph Storm at the trade deadline as well. You also were able to get a couple of NCAA commits with the ever-changing landscape of junior hockey, where players are now able to keep their NCAA eligibility. Blake Montgomery and Donnie Femus, to name a few. How key have those acquisitions been as well, for the overall depth of your club, and especially now with guys like Denver Barkey out of the lineup, and with Jared Woolley missing a game for suspension during the playoffs? Like, how big were those additions, to make sure that you guys have the depth to go all the way?
Yeah, they've been great for us, those players, because in the playoffs, you're going to get injuries. You're going to have games that certain players aren't going to play as well, or they're going to have off nights. So it just seems like with our team so far to date, at points throughout the playoffs, you could point to, Blake being one of our best players on the ice that game, or you could point to Denver being the best player, or, Femus or Allen stepping in. You mentioned like Jared Woolley being out for suspension. And I thought that Cam came in and played higher in the lineup, and played consistent, moved pucks, played defense, and gave us what we needed there. So, adding those guys, one by trade and a couple by free agency, was huge for our team, because you go in these long runs and you get into what we're going to face here against Oshawa as well in the finals. It's your depth of your team is so important, because, a lot of times your top lines kind of might saw off because they're both elite, and then it's your depth of your lineup that can make the difference between winning a game or losing a game. And these guys have come in and showed that they can be difference makers as well.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about draft-eligible defenseman Henry Brustevich, a guy that was wide-eyed last season, got a lot of on-the-job experience, going to the OHL Championship last year as a rookie defenseman, and you've seen the development of guys like Bonk and Dickinson ahead of him. What have you seen from Henry Brustevich, and why do you think that he's going to be so coveted in the upcoming NHL draft in June?
He can play in any situation, to be honest with you. It is pretty phenomenal for a young 17-year-old defenseman. He can play in our top four. He can move down the lineup. He can play on the left side. He can play on the right side. He can bring offense. He defends well. I mean, last series, he really highlighted his defensive game. I mean, he broke up so many 2-on-1s, or, if we made some mistakes with the puck, he defensively shut down a lot of plays last series. You see last year, he moved up to right wing and scored an OT winner. So, the offense is there. So I think his versatility in his game, he's got grit in his game. I think he's, been underneath with Bonk and Dickinson and seen at how they conduct themselves every day. So that's a positive. And, when you have leadership on the back end like that, it's only going to help a young defenseman understand, how to play in the league and how to develop in the league for, hopefully a future in the NHL. So I just think that, we couldn't ask for more from Henry, because he's been great and just a quality person as far as whatever you ask of him from a staff or coaching staff, he does, and he's going to perform well. And that's something that is pretty coveted nowadays.
And then lastly, I got to ask you about this upcoming series, because Oshawa comes in. They've won 8 in a row. You've won 12 in a row in the playoffs. They've taken down 2 higher seeds in Barrie and the Brantford Bulldogs, and then a tough first-round matchup against Brampton as well. You guys come in playing, a really tough Kitchener Rangers team, Erie Otters. I remember being there beside you for those games. They're pretty rowdy there at the Erie Insurance Arena. And your first round matchup against a young Owen Sound attack team. So what are you guys expecting to see from this Oshawa Generals team? You obviously beat them in the finals last year in a pretty quick series, so I'm sure you're not taking anything for granted this time around and going into every game like you have to give your best effort.
Yeah, they're a very tough team. I mean, last year they were a younger team that you might almost say they kind of did what we did 3 years ago, when we kind of made it to the finals without anybody expecting us to. And this year they're much different. They're a well-built team. They have, NHL first rounders like we do. They acquired some elite players in the league. Their back end is strong, and their goaltending is a returnee that's an overager as well. So, it's going to be a very difficult series. I think you have, 2 very good teams that are going to go head to head. And it's, we'll have to be prepared, because that was over a year ago that we beat them 4 straights, and they're a much different team. And as you know, as you get older in the league and get experience, it makes a big difference. So, I know a lot of people are talking about our team, but we're preparing. We know this is going to be the toughest series of all, and we respect them as a very, very good team over on that side.
And then last question for you here about Captain Denver Barkey had 20 points in the 9 playoff game. Just talk about Denver's presence off the ice, because obviously him going down with that unfortunate injury in the Kitchener series. How have you seen him develop and grow as a leader, and how do you see him being a presence, at least at the start of the series, in an off ice capacity as he tries to motivate his guys out there?
Yeah, his development as a leader has been nice to watch, and as the years went on, I mean, when you first take a leadership role, first you have to bring the team together, and you have to, have eventually where everybody's looking to you as part of a group, and we have a group of leadership in there. But I've really seen him take more of a step as far as the off ice and making sure the team's together and communicating with the other leaders and the other players on the team, and then being able to communicate that to the staff, anything they need or where we're at with the team or how they're feeling. So it's been interesting to watch that dynamic develop, because obviously him and, Easton and Oliver have been in with the team since day one, and just watching that dynamic come together has been pretty impressive. And, even since he's been injured, just his presence around the room and watching the guys really pull for him. And, he's doing a lot of work to to come back in this series and have a chance to come back in this series. But watching how much the players around him care for him, I think shows how much he's showed that he cares for everybody else. Now that he's injured, they're all, really pulling for him. So I think Denver's a real special person, and we're hoping for good things for him to be able to come back in the series.
Oh, amazing stuff. London Knights Associate General Manager Rob Simpson. Rob, thanks so much for taking the time on a busy week for you guys over there. Best of luck going into the finals, and congratulations to you and your staff on being able to reach the OHL Championship for a third straight year. I know it's not the final goal, but getting to the Mem Cup and raising that would be obviously big for the organization. But best of luck and congratulations so far.
Thanks for having me.
The great guys over at Hockey Stick Man are sponsoring this video. If you play hockey but are sick of paying upwards of $400 for top-end sticks, check these guys out. There is seriously no better place to shop. The guys are fun, easy, and offer a stress-free experience from start to finish. They get pro stock sticks from major junior teams right up to the NHL teams and sell them for half the price that the same stick would sell for at a retail store. To further support their mission of saving hockey families money, they offer closeout options, which entail taking last year's retail models and blowing them out for less than wholesale prices. It's literally the best prices on the internet for their sticks. And the best sticks of all may be their Pro Blackout series, which provide a top-end stick with no graphics and literally less than half the price of a branded top-end retail model. It's always been their best-selling stick despite super cool pro stock options. It's a no-brainer to shop with these guys, and trust me, they are beauties. Head over to hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm and get $15 off your first order. That's hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm to get an additional $15 off your first order when you sign up on their website. Check out our friends at Hockey Stick Man. Fourth Wall is the official merchandise supplier of the Armchair GM Sports Network. Our user-friendly site is print to order with no minimum items or inventory needed, shipped right to your doorstep safely and efficiently from their North American warehouse. All of our logos are available to supporters, listeners, and viewers can have the best variety available to them for their swag preferences. All items are priced as low as possible, allowing everybody who wants to support our business with the opportunity to do so, receiving quality and comfortable products in return. Shop today at fourthwall.com with the direct link to our Armchair merch store in the description of all episodes and in the bio of all of our social media accounts. Become an Armchair GM today with Fourth Wall.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
We're back on segment 2 of today's OHL Overtime episode, previewing the OHL Championship between the Oshawa Generals and the London Knights. On the first part, we heard from London Knights Associate General Manager Rob Simpson, and I'm pleased to be joined now on the call with Oshawa Generals Vice President and General Manager, Mr. Roger Hunt. Roger, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sure it's an exciting time for the Generals. Getting back to the OHL Championship 2 years in a row and raising 2 straight Bobby Orr trophies is not the easiest thing to do, but I'm sure it's a pretty exciting time for everybody around the Oshawa Generals organization.
Yeah, it's thrilling actually to be able to compete for a league championship, and with everything that we've gone through with the exciting news of the city, re-upping our lease and knowing the Generals' future is secured here for the next 30 years is an incredible thing to be a part of. And I don't think I'll be here when that lease is up, but it's great to be a part of it now. And as you said off the top, it's great to be playing, winning another Bobby Orr, but now we want to focus on London Knights and the OHL Championship.
Just quickly talk to me about the stability of the organization, obviously with Rocco Tullio, how committed he is to making the Oshawa Generals. You said last year when we spoke to you, this is the Oshawa Generals. We're one of the top teams, one of the best franchises in all the CHL a storied franchise just like the London Knights that have won multiple championships and compete year in and year out. So, last summer you yourself and Mike Kelly both received extensions with the organization. Just talk about how important that is for the stability of the organization. I know you've had some coaches move on and things like that, but to have the same voices and pulling the rope in the same direction, just how important is that for a franchise to be successful in the cycle of junior hockey?
Well, I think stability, the word you touched on, is probably the biggest thing here. And hey, certainly the Oshawa Generals are here because of people like Sherry Basson and Mr. Humphreys and various people that have had this organization to get to where it is. And then Rocco's taken it from strength to strength. His ownership, I think 17 years he's owned the team. Mike Kelly's been here, I believe, that length of time. I've been here for 15 years now. So that stability and that continuity, and we've had some success along the way, so we feel as though how we do it is the way to do it, and we'll stick with that. Our scouting staff has remained pretty much intact since my time here, so a lot of that behind the scenes continuity with knowing what types of players that we like, we know what type of players we think would be successful here. As you said, coaches have moved on. A lot of coaches have moved on, but up, and no better than certainly DJ Smith in the National Hockey League. Derek Laxdal has gone back now in the American Hockey League. So coaches will come and go, and coaching philosophies will come and go. But what's happened here in the last decade and a half is the core values and principles of the organization have not changed or wavered. So that allows that to, again, to go back to your stability word is something, and we're driven and we're motivated to win. That's what we want to do.
And you talked about having players, management, coaching staff, equipment managers, everybody that moves on to higher levels. I'm sure that's important for the organization to develop people because it is a developmental league at the end of the day for everybody within it. You guys went through a little bit of turbulence in the first half of the season. Roger, you made a coaching change, brought in Brad Malone, first-time head coach, and then brought in Mario Pouliot, who has so much experience winning 2 Memorial Cups in the QMJHL. How pleased are you with the way Brad and Mario and the rest of the coaching staff have kind of rallied and got the team to really be playing their best hockey in the second half of the year, and then more specifically winning 8 in a row here in the playoffs, taking out 3 strong teams in the Brampton Steelheads and then the Barrie Colts and as well the Brantford Bulldogs. The last 2, you guys were the lower seed and didn't have home ice advantage.
Well, I think Brad and his staff have done a great job, making the coaching change when we did, before Christmas. Brad was around our team in a lesser aspect, a player development role a little bit, but I think seeing his interaction with the players, we knew he didn't have the experience. He was coming right from playing. And then, seeing how he took the team and he leaned on his assistants, Mike and Patty. And then when the opportunity came up that Mario was available, that inexperience was something that, it was evident, but not in the results or anything like that, but knew going forward, hey, if you're going to match up against, James Richmond, Marty Williamson, and Jay McKee, and now ultimately Dale Hunter, we needed to add someone that had a little bit of that winning background and in the CHL. So to get Mario to bring it in, I think he was the final piece of that puzzle. But make no mistakes, it's Brad's team, and he's our head coach right now, and he's doing a fantastic job. But every step of the way, he seems to have passed, and the players have responded. At the end of the day, you can have a great coach, but if players don't play for him, it doesn't work. So we're thrilled with how things have gone, and laterally, as you said, Mario coming in has just probably been a real steadying influence for a whole group.
Yeah, it seems like Brad really has the team buying in, and they certainly relate to him just being out of the game himself. And again, going up against the coach in Dale Hunter with 1,000+ wins in the OHL, I'm sure that's a challenge he's looking forward to with Mario Pouliot as well, as you mentioned. But Roger, you made a couple of acquisitions at the beginning of the year. You brought in Colby Barlow, gave up some really good young pieces to be able to do so. The Winnipeg Jets first rounder took him a little bit to get going, but it seems like he's fit in quite well with your top end forwards, and then as well getting Andrew Gibson from the Sioux Greyhounds at the trade deadline to really, formulate that D-core that's been so valuable, especially here in the playoffs, going up against Brantford and Barrie, two high-powered offenses. How pleased and how important were those two acquisitions for you to have to make to be able to get this team back to where it is?
Well, as you mentioned, Colby being a first-round NHL pick, a proven goal scorer in the OHL. Colby's a guy that he didn't have one good year. He had 3 good years, and you're right. I think the first 6 or 7 games, I don't even know if he had a point. Not because he wasn't a good player, it just wasn't falling for him. But we really felt that he would come good, and he has, and he's proven to be the player that we thought we'd get. And as you said, we gave up a lot for him, but there's not a lot of teams that wouldn't do that all over again if they could be here in the OHL Final. So him being that addition, and then as you said at the deadline with Gibby, just a guy with a lot of experience. He was on the world stage there at Christmas with Callum Ritchie, with Team Canada. So we knew what his pedigree was like, albeit he was in the Western Conference, both of them in the Western Conference. But to see Andrew and knowing that adding that experience back there was something that was important. But two little, I don't know if they're little moves, but Simon Wang and Noah Powell coming in full time, they were huge parts to adding to our group. And at the end of the day, no one that came in was brought in to take over our team. We have our stars and our homegrown guys like the Richies, the Senecas, the Danfords, the Torrances, and it goes on and on. They're the spine of our team. These guys are brought in to enhance what we already had, and they've done a great job filling into those roles and doing their job. So we're really happy with how everything turned out. And again, we're here large part because of those additions that came in and enhanced the group we already had.
Oshawa Generals Vice President and General Manager Roger Hunt is with us. Roger, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Ben Danford. Being able to get to see this year, a lot of pressure on him to begin with when you're a first round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs and you're just playing down the road there in Oshawa, and he's going up against another first rounder in Easton Cowan of the Leafs in this upcoming OHL Championship. Everything's magnified, but especially when you have that Toronto Maple Leafs logo as your affiliation. How do you think Ben's handled all the pressure, the extra media attention, and especially now with the Leafs still playing, and now you guys are going to be playing just down the road there? How do you think he's handled everything as a leader on and off the ice with the pressure?
He's handled it like a pro. He's an assistant captain in the OHL at 17. He's a captain in the OHL at 18, and he's handled everything that's come his way. Being a first-round draft pick of the Leafs is not an easy thing in Southern Ontario, and for him to and Easton. I don't know Easton Cowan as a person, but both those kids are under the microscope in the OHL, let alone having Big Brother down, 40 minutes down the road, Toronto, and the Toronto media looking at you. So I suspect that the Toronto Maple Leafs are very thrilled with both of those players. And but Ben he was a leader when he got here. To be honest, he had leadership abilities when he was 16. And like I said, he was an assistant captain at 17, now a captain at 18. So he's handled everything that's come his way. I'm not surprised at that. He comes from a great family. He's very grounded, and we couldn't ask for more from Ben and being our captain. So he's handled it magnificently.
And then lastly, just about this upcoming matchup, Roger, you look at the London Knights. They've won 12 games here in the playoffs, haven't lost a game, won 54 games in the regular season. They're the favorites, to win the CHL as well. And you guys obviously want to use that as motivation and fuel, knowing that they celebrated on your ice last year and the series didn't go as long as you would have liked to. But, what maybe did you guys learn from last season that you think the group this year is going to go into with it and want to have, better results and be able to really show that, just like in the last 2 series where you were the lower seed, that you can really take it to a higher seed and prove to everybody that this is the team you guys thought you would be?
Well, I think this team is making a believer of me. I remember back to the team when we won, they weren't afraid of anybody. I'm not talking physical, but mentally they would take on all comers. And I think the fact that it's London again is that extra motivation. I don't know. It wouldn't matter what team it was out of the Western Conference. If you're not motivated to try and win, you're 4 wins away from an OHL championship. And the fact that it's London again, does that give you a little bit more motivation? I don't know. I don't think it would be any different if it was Windsor that we were playing or Kitchener or whoever. But we're focused on ourselves. We're not really worried about who that other team is. So again, this group of players has grown together, and again, speak to Ben Danford's leadership. The leaders of our team have got this group rolling along with the coaches. So to be matched up with London again is great, but it doesn't matter. It's London. It could have been anybody, and we're still motivated to try and win, and that's what we're aiming to do.
Yeah, and lastly for you, I know the NCAA ruling has sort of changed things in the Ontario Hockey League and the CHL as a whole. The landscape's ever changing, and getting players to commit obviously is a big importance moving forward. We don't really know what this is going to look like in the next 2 or 3 years, but we did see in this past OHL draft that half the second round was Americans, which we've never really seen before. So how do you think that this is going to impact things going forward? And obviously Oshawa is a destination for a lot of players given their storied history, but from a management perspective, how much are you looking forward to the challenge of what's to come in the next couple of years with the dynamic of younger players coming into the league, but maybe players that are a little bit older might be leaving to commit to colleges a little bit earlier?
Well, I think, as you said, there's certain destinations in the OHL, and we're one of them. I think it made it a real draft. A lot of times, real good American players were taken considerably later in the draft than they would if it wasn't like it is today. So this draft made, you made mention to the amount of second round picks. You had to pick a player this year where you felt he slotted in your draft because there's no restrictions on them now, even if. And a lot of American players, their motivation is to play in the NCAA. That's what they've grown up to. Now they can play in the CHL and then still fulfill their dream if their dream is to play in the NCAA. I think we want to make sure we get guys that their dreams to play in the NHL, and how they get there, we can provide a bit. I mean, our second round pick from last year, Brooks Rogowski, is a Michigan native, and I'm sure he could or will get a scholarship to any school he wants. So I really think this is a great option for all players from North America to come into this league. It's we trumpet it as the greatest developmental league there is, and you look at the NHL draft, you see kids going right from this league to the NHL. You look at a lot of the stars that are in the NHL today; they came through the CHL, so those are just facts. It's not a bias or anything. So I think it is a great league for kids to develop, whether you're from Canada or the United States. And I think now, with motivation for a player to get to the NHL, they're going to come to the CHL.
Vice President and General Manager of the Oshawa Generals, Roger Hunt. Roger, thanks so much for jumping on with us a little bit before the series gets going. Appreciate the analysis of the war room, what goes on with the Generals, and what's made them so successful to be able to win back-to-back Bobby Orr trophies and go up against the London Knights in the OHL Championship 2 years in a row. It's going to be a fun series to watch. Again, congratulations. I know the job isn't done, but it's a really hard thing to do. So, good luck, and happy to see the Generals back at this point again.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, it's going to be a great series. And, Toronto Maple Leaf fans, you got two great players, two great prospects to watch. So we'll fill both buildings. So we're excited to get started.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.